The film that you're about to see captures the behind-the-scenes groundwork that's going into the making of the Wild Walkers documentary series. Our key question is, how do we merge nature and culture in a contemporary fashion? For millennia, Indigenous people from across the globe embodied an extraordinary relationship with nature. So what will it take for us to embody this same essential harmony? As the Wild Walkers documentary series unfolds, we'll be exploring this theme. Enjoy.
Oh my God. That was just unbelievable. Literally here. Oh my God. Literally.
My legs are like...
Oh my God. I literally thought I was going to die.
Same.
I immediately thought, like, up here, people, this is the most insane thing that just happened. Oh my God.
The whole sky was
Oh
white.
my God. I
sky
thought we
was
were
white.
dead, man. I thought
In September 2019, photographer Nick Kennedy, filmmaker Brendan Caves, and myself, Darvis Walker, spent 6 days on the wild Tarkine coastline in the northwest of Tasmania. Our goal was to capture the necessary landscape imagery for the Wild Walkers YouTube series and begin to share the Wild Walkers vision as it naturally unfolds. Well, we've arrived. Not that you'll be able to see very well from this angle, but there's some wild swell coming in on the west coast. So we've just gotten off our little boat and are now on a mission to head into our camp. One of the things that's immediately obvious as I jump off the boat is as soon as I step into this place, I've spent a lot of time out here over the years, I immediately watch as my sense of emotional well-being goes through the roof. My mental clarity just seems to expand immediately, and just my general sense of happiness just explodes. Irrespective of what the conditions are actually pretty windy, a bit squally, but immediately as I jump off the boat, I feel like I'm at home. Welcome to Emerald Valley. What an extraordinarily beautiful place. So it's the end of day one, it's Monday now, and we walked in over the last couple of hours to this particular spot, and a really spectacular walk in. You might be able to hear the bird song in the background. One of the spectacular things about this particular space and this particular campsite is that it's really highly protected from the prevailing westerly and southerly winds, especially southerly winds coming through in the wintertime and the spring. This spot here is a place that in the seed camp that we ran last year that we coined Emerald Valley for its extraordinarily rich emerald hues and variations of all of the colours and the spectrum of green. So it's only day one. I'm really looking forward to see what happens over the next few days and to showcasing the landscape with you guys a little bit further. And tonight we're going to settle in. We'll have a warm fire, cook a nice meal, and start again bright and early tomorrow morning. I'm really looking forward to it. Well, it's the morning of day 2, so it's Tuesday. I'm standing up on the Guardian Rock, which is an absolutely spectacular rock face looking out over this gorgeous little valley. So we've made our way up here to experience and camp and spend some time in a site that we intend longer term to be a base camp for this coastline, for the community, for the Wild Walkers community, but also going forward a base camp that serves as a sanctuary and a safe space for the kids that we work with. It's windy, it's day 2. We've had a little rest and some lunch, and now myself and Brendan and Nick are heading down to a spot that we call the Cauldron. And once again, we won't name drop exactly where that is, but it's a beautiful part of the Tarkine Coast. We can say that much, and you guys are about to see. So this is the first time that Brendan's been out in this particular part of the landscape, so I'm really looking forward to see what his experience of it is, and from a photography point of view, from a filming point of view. Alrighty.
I was born in Tassie, grew up here. I always been walking in the bush since I was young, because there's forest out the back of where I grew up, and I just kind of explored from there. And then also, as I grew up, I started getting into audio, and more recently film. I met Darvis and started doing guiding in the Tarkine. That was about 15 years ago. I've been playing in bands for years. I'm a musician, I'm a drummer, play a little bit of mandolin and guitar as well. And I went to the Conservatorium of Music in about mid-2000s, and I also studied audio there, which was something I was doing at nights, mixing bands, that kind of thing. So I did a lot of audio there, and the last audio unit I did at the con was audio post-production, which was for film. And I really wanted to take that further, but there was nowhere in Tassie to really work with film or learn film at that time. So that was on a bit of a hiatus for a while, until the opportunity arose that I could go to Melbourne and study at RMIT, where I've just did a diploma of screen and media. So the idea that me and Darvis came up with, given my skills in film and audio, is that I would be the kind of director of the video content of the Wild Walkers journey as the Wild Walkers grows into what we want it to be. I'll be filming all that, conducting interviews, shooting landscape footage, all kinds of things that will work towards the YouTube series that we want to create. I'm a lot more confident behind the camera than in front of the camera, so that's kind of my role there. We've come out to the Tarkine this time. My job specifically is to shoot landscape footage, which we will use for B-roll, so that when we come out for the trip in January, I can focus on interviewing people and then I'll be able to put that landscape footage with all that interviews and make the audience really get the idea of how vast this landscape is and how beautiful it is.
So myself and Brendan and Nick have arrived at this place that is extremely precious to me. And we've coined this spot the Cauldron. In fact, it was Nick's father, Scotty, that called this place the Cauldron, maybe 10 years ago or something. And, you know, for obvious reasons, as you can see in the landscape footage that the guys are getting, twisted rocks and just ancient geology. Incredible, incredible landscape. At one stage, this landscape, this coastline was joined to the east coast, an eastern peninsula in Antarctica, and the rocky riverbed, the rocky stones along the coastline actually formed a riverbed some 1 billion years ago in a giant river valley. So nice to show you guys this beautiful landscape. I'm looking forward to one-on-one bringing you out here, or in small groups bringing you out here.
How I first fell in love with nature would be from the age of 5, go camping with Dad. Dad would take us out on trips to Lake Eyre. We went to Uluru, Flinders Ranges, Flinders Island. It's basically all around the Northern Territory, Queensland and South Australia. Did that since probably from 5 to 13, 14 years old. At the age of 16, I first came out to the Tarkine Coast with my father and my brother Mitch. So that was back in 2017, 2016, down to the south coast of the Tarkine for about 4 or 5 days. And that's what's got me hooked since then, just the sheer aloneness out here. Just like for 10 k's as the crow flies, there's no one, basically. I just love that element of out here, just being the only one, being the first to do things, being the first to climb up a rock face. It's just awesome. Say you've done it. And then that's when the element of photography, like my landscape photography, got brought in to be able to share these images with people and just for myself to convey how I was feeling in that time and the emotions found throughout in the Tarkine, which there are plenty of. And since then, the Tarkine has sparked my passion for photography and conveying nature through the lens and the emotions that I've found throughout. So yeah, the Tarkine's played probably the biggest role in my photography and actually getting me out there with the camera and striving to convey everything the best I can. The senses out here, when I'm shooting, you just realize how peaceful and quiet it is. You're just disconnected from everything else. It's just like I'm in another world, like just me, the camera, and nature. So I just like to look around, hear the birds, the tranquility of the place. It's just sensory overload. I just can't get enough of it. Just pick up the rocks, the moss, just the untouched land. I just love that. I don't like shooting. I don't like taking photos of man-made objects. It doesn't have the connection that I hope for when shooting.
So there's an incredible sunset happening down at the Cauldron on the entire west coast, and the lads, I can't sort of get to it, so we'll do a little cutaway now. Boom, the magic of film. So the lads are down there right now and shooting it up. It's absolutely been a magnificent day. I might just walk and talk a little bit. I can't possibly showcase the spectacular nature of it, but it's been a brilliant day. It's the end of day 2. I'm heading back to camp while the guys are out doing their landscape stuff, and I'll get the camp set up and make dinner, etc., etc. Yeah, it's been just a magical day of getting some solo time and walking out into the landscape and shooting. So now it's time to get back to camp and get the home fires cooking. So welcoming you guys over there. It's like we're just sort of welcoming you into around our fire space. This is Emerald Valley. We've returned from being out at the Cauldron. These guys stayed out until sunset, and I came in and got the fire going, cooked some tucker. And one of the traditions, and I think a really important tradition for going out into a wild landscape, is the contemplative part of it and the reflective part of it. And one of the reasons I was talking about fire today, one of the reasons I think fire is so important is it actually brings people together. And especially when you've got a reasonable sized group, it's an important thing to, like a central hearth, to bring people together so we can check in and make sure that we've got a bit of a sense of how people are travelling. So, well done today, dudes. We scored.
We did.
We scored. It was absolutely awesome. Yeah, so maybe passing the talking. Here we go. Talking stick. Nick, passing it over. How was your day, dude?
Yep.
Highlights. What did you enjoy? Talk us through it a little bit.
Thank you, Darby. Today was awesome. It's been a long time since I've been out in the wild without a phone or any connection to back home. So it's been a big sensory overload in terms of natural feelings. It was really good. Big highlight of the day was probably down at the Cauldron. So setting up a few shots down there by the water. Scoping it out for about 20 minutes, seeing what was safe and what wasn't. And decided to go in a little closer to the water. I was probably shooting there for about 5-10 minutes, everything was cool. Just out of nowhere, a big rogue wave came in and scared the crap out of me, really. It came pretty close, so that was definitely a big wake-up call and got the heart rate going. But those things are what I really like out in nature. Those things that make you feel a bit vulnerable and more grounded, really. So yeah, definitely noted to take a step back each time I go and shoot and think what's worth it and what isn't. So yeah, I think that was a good highlight and good something to think about, really. Yeah, feeling pretty tired now. Did a lot of walking. Had wet shoes, so my feet are pretty rasped and keen for a sleep soon. But pass it over to Brendan.
Awesome, man. Thanks.
Cheers.
Mr. Brendan?
Yes, well,
We're finally here.
we're finally here. We've been talking about coming out here for months and months to the Tarkine Coast.
Cheers.
And
Cheers, Nick.
Cheers.
and here we
Good.
finally are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
been a long time coming.
Sure has. Yeah, and it's wonderful to be here. It's as magic as I remember it. I have been to the Tarkine Coast before, but much further north, up near Tema, or one of those towns up there. I've never been to this part, and it just feels so wild here because there is an old track that is closed. You had to come in here by boat. It just really brings in that sense of isolation. And this morning, rising up early, it wasn't too hard. It just felt like we've slipped into nature time quite quickly, because without all your modern digital mod cons, you kind of don't need to stay up past dark, and you get up at first light. It's nice to slip into that natural time, which we find really hard to do in the city when we're surrounded by electric lights and computers and YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm feeling good. I had a good day. My energy levels are good. Good tucker, and shot some spectacular scenery. The sunset this evening was pretty amazing. Just the sunbursts coming through the clouds onto the ocean. And for day one, day one of filming, it's a great success.
Yeah.
Have the talking stick.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I guess for me the cornerstone distinction between just coming out bush versus coming out bush with some intention and actually holding a contemplative space. I mean, I think we've all discussed it as well, that it's one thing to just maintain that kind of sense of day-to-day grind when you come out into a wild place and stay busy, you know, like stay focused on routine and getting stuff done. But I think it's really important to interrupt that and make space. And one of the things that I'm really appreciating is the way in which you guys are embracing that. Because I think it's really what fosters a sense of a community, a sense of communion, is by actually just having a sincere space where people can share. So really, it's a highlight for me today, just watching number one, the way that you guys are out there and so passionately engaged in the landscape, but also the sincerity that you bring in terms of a reflective space. So on that note, shall we wrap it up?
I think so.
It's a wrap. Wishing you guys a good sleep. Let's get up at the cracker and we'll get up and get a few more sunrise shots. See what happens there.
Sure.
It's always a little bit uncertain, but it brings something.
Yeah.
It's going to definitely bring something.
It's better than sleeping.
Tiredness.
Yeah, that's right. Alrighty guys, it's good night from us. Looking forward to seeing you in the morning and sharing the rest of the journey. It's so nice to have you guys come along with us. Ciao for now.
See
Good
you.
night.
Good night. The hills are alive with the sound of toothbrush. Things get intimate out in the Tarkine. Nick keeps on wanting to share water with me and toothbrushes. He wants me to brush his teeth. You know, awkward. It's Wednesday morning and I haven't headed north for a while. Over the last few years I've been hanging out more to the south, so I haven't headed north along this beach for a little while. And this beach is a real favourite of mine because this little feature has always blown my mind. I'll show you. How did that thing get there? It's crazy. Now, out of all the coastline, that rock just doesn't fit. I've always called it the dragon egg. And one of the features of the coast, as you're walking along, is these beautiful little creeks. They just emerge from the Norfolk Range. Literally, I just carry a cup with me, and as I walk, I dip my cup in the water, and it's as simple as that. It's wild paradise at its best. Better watch my step through here. It's super craggy, wild, rocky coast. I freaking love this spot. I've walked this beach for 20 years. I grew up in Tasmania. I was born in Launceston, and I moved to the east coast of Tassie when I was 18 years old, and I got a traineeship with Parks and Wildlife. Started land conservation management, training in ecology, track work, all of that sort of stuff. That was a real epiphany for me in my life because all of a sudden I'd found something that I loved. I loved being outdoors. I'd been in the army for a couple of years actually. I didn't love that, but I loved the outdoor component of it. So when I finally started working with parks in that context, it was a real game changer for me. So for the first time, I discovered this extraordinary passion of being in landscape, but particularly ecology was the thing that I fell in love with. And when I was living on the East Coast in 1999, I met a guy by the name of Rob Fairley, and he proposed to me an idea to start a tourism business in the Tarkine. Now, only a couple of years prior to that, with one of my best friends, I'd come into the Tarkine and explored quite thoroughly, and it really impacted me. This was in the mid to late 90s, 97. And so when Rob pitched this idea to start a tourism business in the Tarkine, immediately I knew that's what I wanted to do. It started as Tiger Trails and went on to become Tarkine Trails, so we'll call it Tarkine Trails. The concept with Tarkine Trails was simply to generate an alternative economy to serve as a positive solution to ripping up the landscape for resource extraction. And throughout that experience and throughout those years of Tarkine Trails, the thing that I realised that I loved the most about guiding, I ended up spending some 700 nights guiding only in this landscape, was the transformational nature of what happens when a group of people come into a wild place. And so looking back now, several years after selling Tarkine Trails, the cornerstone kind of distinction between Wild Walkers and Tarkine Trails is that within the tourism context, you'll join a guided tour, come out for 6 days, create an extraordinary sense of community and communion with that group of people, and then disperse, likely never to see each other again. The difference with that as a tourism offering and Wild Walkers is that Wild Walkers exists to build a paradigm of wild communities. And the reason for that is that if you look at your own life experience, if we don't have a community of people around us that support those things that are most important to us, it's really difficult to achieve them. So within the vision of Wild Walkers, the mission is to walk the wild back into the world, to come into landscape as a community practice, not just a holiday. And the irony being that it's the best holiday I ever have. So the goal is to come out into landscape with Wild Walkers as a not-for-profit organisation on trips, sitting around base camp and offering a lot of contemplative, silent space for the community when we're out here, week-long journeys, base camp focused, lots of silence, lots of reflection. We've got such a challenge in our contemporary culture, such a divide between nature and culture, that the irony being we've got the most extraordinary, in the Tasmanian context, the most isolated culture to have ever lived on an island. 10,000 years in isolation alone, at least 45,000 years of occupation. A profound partnership with the natural world. And that's really the mission of Wild Walkers. So that talks a little bit about my background in terms of how I came in to the Tarkine. And how I got to know the Tarkine and how I got to fall in love with this landscape, both the coast and the forest. So myself and Nick met up toward the end of the day, and now the sun's going down, and we decided to come and adventure up onto these granite tours. And I've never been onto these things before, and I've walked past them so many times over 20 years. It's so nice to be up here. And immediately as the sun's going down across the coastline, and it's day 3, and we've arrived in a sense of really feeling at home, all of the stuff that's going on in my day-to-day life has fallen away and exposing how I actually feel, and I can feel this overwhelming sadness. And I think that's an incredibly important thing, to stop and be able to feel that, Because mostly I think in day-to-day life, myself and all of us tend to walk over top of what we're actually experiencing emotionally. It's a beautiful way to come out and experience one's emotions and be authentic with them and allow them to arise, share them with the community and heal. So looking forward to bringing you guys out who are eventually going to come out to this landscape and showing you this particular spot. It's really special. They say that, wilderness begins 4 days in. And ultimately what they're saying and when they refer to that is that it takes that amount of time for us to actually settle ourselves into a place, into a landscape and feel like we're still with the place. And one of the themes that's really emerging for me throughout this trip, of the theme of guardianship, arose in the story that I told Nick in regard to the Aboriginal people of this coastline. And myself and Brendan and Nick, in fact, last night were walking back to camp, and there was just a few moments of genuine care that arose in response to our walk back. We were walking back in the dark, and I remember Brendan stopping and just making sure that we got to the intersection and that we were looked after, so that we turned at the correct intersection to get back to camp, because it's a bit of a rabbit warren. And at that point, the insight hit me that this is guardianship. Guardianship is this sense of taking care of something. And in that context, Brendan was taking care of us. And I think what happens in a landscape, in a wild place, is that it's really a training ground for empathy, and naturally draws out our sense of taking care as a result of the higher level of perceived risk, I think, the perceived threat of injury or harm has our senses on, has us in our body, has us feeling instinctively that we really need to take care of each other. Such a powerful training ground for a sense of guardianship, of taking care of each other, of taking care of the place. And then I was telling Nick this story about the people of the Pieman River, the people of Sandy Cape, the Tarkine and the Manigan people up at Arthur River, the Petadenic of the Pieman River. Difficult name to pronounce, but something like that. And we had an extended moment of silence. We were probably silent for 10 minutes and just staring at the water. And I felt just freaking angry. So, and underneath that I can feel this extraordinary depth of sadness. This place just speaks and sings of its lost people everywhere. The entire coastline is a giant testament to their culture. Enormous sized middens, stone tools, core stones, Just everything in this landscape sings of the people that inhabited the landscape. And every time I come into this place, I'm constantly reminded of the profound nature of guardianship and care that this community of people had for this landscape, and depth of relatedness and understanding and insight. What an extraordinary culture of guardianship.
Just the man for the task.
Huh?
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
I need to clean my lens. You can see that, well, you can't see, but I can. Nick's been fantastic in helping with all of the practical stuff. Nick's a real photographer. I'm just a pointer and shooter. Can I grab one of those lens things?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. What are you planning on doing now?
I was going to escape around there, suss out some shots.
Okay, sussing out some shots. Just a second. Look at this. We'll turn this thing around. So Nick is going solo tonight.
Yep.
How is it going solo?
It's alright.
Have you ever been by yourself, like in a tent, solo, out in the landscape? Like in a place like this, a long way away?
No, first time.
Any nerves?
Not really, because
No?
we spent the time alone yesterday
Yeah.
for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Right now, down here, there's a wombat. I love wombats. They're so cute. They're so beautiful. They're also really blind. You can actually get quite close to them. You've got to be downwind. I woke up this morning with the intention to time-lapse the sunrise, and it's almost impossible. The only way to describe this wind is violent.
You got some goodies there for me, Nick?
Some goodies, mate.
I think we're
We're droughted on the goodies.
We're well and truly out of the
Got
goodies.
some tissue paper.
Yeah. Nick's just savouring in the smell of muesli bars. By day 5, as food sources are depleting rapidly, we're looking like we're going to have tuna for breakfast.
We're also having a drink in Urine here.
That's right. That's the
It's heavy days.
yeah. That's the spiritual nature of the journey.
Fly the legal
Last night, Nick went solo. He walked from the Guardian camp, Emerald Valley, back to first camp where we are right now. How'd you go, Nick?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Very peaceful at night time.
So it was a few kilometres to walk, pitch black dark, solo,
Yep.
on tracks that you're not super familiar with.
Yep.
And did you feel afraid of it at first?
Yeah, it was a little uncomfortable at first. Then you realise there's only wallabies and paddy melons out here.
Yeah.
It's easy, just like the daytime.
So once you got into the zone, what was your experience?
Yeah, it was awesome. Completely different. First time I've ever done something like that, so no, I'd definitely do it again.
So today marks day 5. It's Friday. We're heading home tomorrow. And I'm just walking out for the final sunset. Sunset on the Tarkine Coast is just something you've really got to see to kind of get it. It's so invigorating watching the sun go down over the ocean, especially when you're in a really genuinely wild, remote place. It's different, I think, if you're sitting on the foreshore of Fremantle in Western Australia or something, but here on the Tarkine Coast, one feels like one has very much earned an incredible sunset. So I'm going to go and head out with the lads, see what Nick's doing, see what Brendan's doing, and watch as they film some magic.
I guess the big lesson as a filmmaker out here is that movement is everything in a landscape cinematography context. You can film a scene that's a still scene and it may as well just be a photo. And if you put that into a video context, it just looks like you've gone to a still image. So you've got to try and capture movement. And I'm really glad that I brought out a little field monitor here so I can watch my shoot back at the end of the day and see what I've captured and see the mistakes I've made and learn from them and then take that into the next day. So now in every shot, if it's a still shot of the mountains in the background, I'll try and just get a little bit of movement in there. There'll be a bush in the corner and the wind might be just moving the leaves around a little bit, and all of a sudden it takes away that look that it might be a still image when it's not. The thing that has struck me most, I guess, on an emotional level in this landscape is the fact that the Indigenous history is just sitting there on top of the landscape. You have middens with stone tools just sitting there when they were last used, and we know that those middens have been there thousands of years, and those last tools sitting on top were left there probably in the early colonial period. And this is a conservation area. It's a wilderness area, and it just makes me think how the people who lived here didn't regard this as wilderness. This was just their home, and all across the world we're all indigenous to somewhere. We all go back to some landscape, something that is now called wilderness but was once just our home, the place we were meant to be, that runs at the pace that we evolved to run at. And we've just removed ourselves from that and now look at this place as this wild place, almost a daunting place for some people. where really it's our home.
I'm just now walking around really gently. It's night 5. I've just done a little interview with Brendan down by the water, which was just absolutely fantastic. And the wind has completely calmed. It's really a serene experience to be here in spring, where I said this morning that the wind was violent. It's definitely been violent. So aggressive that you're just swearing at it at times. It's ripping your hat off and throwing your stuff everywhere. And the contrast between that and now is literally chalk and cheese. So I'm walking around and just getting some landscape imagery, because it's such a joy to experience those insane, intense conditions versus the serenity of what's happening right now. Nick's off in the hills somewhere. Brendan's weaving his magic over there, and the sun's going down. I can think of no better place to be on the planet right at this moment. So myself and Brendan are now walking to find a wee little spot to do. It's the final night, to find a little spot to do the final night sunset. That's a nice rocky feature there, Brendan. That little thing. To do the final night sunset. So I'm going to shoot Brendan as he does it, if you know what I mean. I've got an idea of a great little spot. Let's see what happens. Looking forward to it. It's the first time that I've really hung out with Brendan shooting, because mostly we've been doing our own thing.
Everything looks a bit average and
You've read. Yeah. If normal pixels, but is there enough light?
Oh my God. That was just unbelievable.
Literally here. Oh my God. Literally.
my legs are like.
Oh my God. I literally thought I was going to die.
Same.
I immediately thought, like, up here, people, this is the most insane thing that just happened. Oh my God.
The whole sky was
Oh
white.
my God.
The whole
I
sky
thought
was
we were
white.
dead, man. I thought a meteor was going to hit. We were just talking about meteors. Oh my God. Literally, like, freaked the
whole sky was
out.
white. It was just white.
The whole sky went
'Cause
to daytime.
We were looking at that. We're like,
The whole sky went to daytime.
oh
That was
my God.
insane.
I have goosebumps.
Oh my God, that was one of the most intense things I've ever experienced. The whole sky. Look, this is what happened, right? I turned around and suddenly it was daytime.
Yeah.
And I was like, my whole brain exploded.
Yeah.
And then I quickly looked to the sky. This thing shot down and then exploded.
It paused.
Yeah, paused and then exploded into like a million pieces.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And then the whole sky was just like bright as day.
That's.
It was insane.
Brendan, did you see that?
Did you see that, Brendan?
Yeah, we were skitzing as well. We thought we were dead.
Right?
We were like crapping ourselves.
Let's just get Brendan's view on this, because we're actually filming
I was like way off a track by myself in the bush.
We're filming.
You know.
We're filming now, right?
A bit spooky.
It was a bit spooky, dude. That was next level.
Yeah, but it was already
What
spooky.
the
I
hell?
walked up this track by myself in the
Hang
middle of
on.
nowhere,
Yes.
in the dark, and then and I'm like, the whole sky just lights up, and I'm like, I just assumed the only lights out here are our torches, and I'm like,
Oh my
whose
God.
torch is that? And I'm like,
Dude. Myself.
what? And I'm like, no, that's lightning. That's massive sheet lightning, but there was no thunder.
Oh man. You didn't see what
see
actually
the video?
happened?
No.
Oh my God. It was freak show, dude. So we're
sitting this. We're looking.
Come on over, Nick, so we're sort of in the camera or whatever.
Because I was
we're-
down in the track behind Tea Tree, so
yeah.
all I saw was the skylight up.
Oh my
the
God,
whole
man.
Sky.
We've got 3 minutes left, so we need to finish telling you what happened. So, Nick, what did you see?
Sitting here, bright white light. I thought like a car with high beams was behind us. I'm like, what the hell? And then Dallas is like, what the hell? We look over this way, like a meteor flying out of the sky pauses just above the tree line. It paused and it just exploded.
Oh my God.
And we're like, is this real?
Yeah.
I thought we're dead.
I thought we did.
But I was waiting for like the 2 seconds after to be like
That's
that.
exactly where I went. I went instantly to wow, we're dead.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what happened.
It was insane. It went in like a million pieces, like.
Because what had happened, coming back to the camp, what had happened was Nick was filming me and playing around with infrared, and it was hard to get focus. And so he's just turned the camera off. The event's gone boom, and quickly we've grabbed it and turned it back on.
Like 10 seconds after I turned it on.
Literally 10 seconds after, just to capture the raw shock of the experience.
The weird thing when something like that happens and you're out here, there's like you can't get any
Confirmation.
FM radio station.
Yeah.
It's just so
We're
remote.
not going to find out
It's
for like 24 hours.
It could have just been a more localised event, or it could have been something epically huge and devastating a long way away. We just have no idea. I'm sure social media is probably a buzz or something right now.
Yeah, that's the
Or
thing.
is it just something that happened here on the West Coast that we're
That's
the
the-
only people who saw it?
That's the bizarre thing.
We just have no idea of knowing.
We don't
Till
know.
tomorrow.
We don't know at all. We've got no idea whether a portion of the world has just been wiped out.
Because it happened to the east.
It's gone to the east.
Hobart's east as well.
Good morning, humans. Good morning, people. It's morning 6, and we're ready to go home. We survived the coming of the light from last night. That was an extraordinary experience that I'll never forget. I couldn't imagine a better place to be than the Tarkine Coast for capturing and experiencing such a thing. I just headed off for a little morning walk and captured some footage, saying goodbye to the place. And I wanted to reach out and say thank you to all of you people who donated so generously to support this trip happening. We've discussed, the use and the context of this particular trip, and largely it was to gain B-roll footage for the emerging series. But we figured that out of all of this, we'll probably make a little making of Wild Walker's documentary. Sorry for moving you around. This camera is really heavy. And that's one of the things that across time that I hope to achieve is, with you guys as a support. This is really reaching out and saying this is a community organisation that aims to walk the wild back into the world, where we can bring the sense of presence that unfolds naturally out in a wild landscape back into culture. You don't need to, when you're out here, be sitting in a meditation or a yoga class. The landscape is a teacher for that. It's a teacher for staying present. It drops us into our senses. It brings us back to our humanity. And if we can bridge that and really forge a framework for a wild community where you spend extensive periods of time in the wild annually. That's my passion. So any support that you can bring to the table is hugely appreciated. So signing off from me, I'd just like to say, on this extremely serene morning, I'm so happy that I'm still alive, because last night was a spin out. It was one of the most weird experiences I've ever had in my life. So life is definitely in perspective, and yeah, I'd just like to say a huge thanks and express my heartfelt gratitude. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And if you've got a contribution to make, a creative contribution to make toward Wild Walkers, if you see yourself as having ideas and inputs into this as an organisation, as a movement, then just come forward. It takes a tribe to walk the wild back into the world. Over and out from me. And over and out from this extraordinary place. I'm looking forward to popping the question about the... Hey fella. Oh. All aboard, Nick. Awesome, mate. Very good. Good to see you again, Darvis. Tony, good to see you again, mate.
Pop in, you fellas.
So the million, before we jump in the boat, last night we were down on the coast. Did you see the flash of light that happened last night?
No.
Oh my God, mate.
No.
There was a meteor that came through that lit the place up brighter than day.
8:30.
8:30 or something. It was absolutely extraordinary. Literally the landscape lit up.
Brighter than day.
Brighter than day. There was a massive flash and then an explosion. And myself and Nick, but Brendan was around the corner, saw it, the light come down and explode. And we literally thought a meteor had hit the earth
We're dead.
and we're about to die. The first instinct, it was so enormous.
Right. How far away from you?
The amount of light was intense.
I thought like there was a truck behind us with like spotlights and everything. I just turned them on. I'm like, where's the car?
How long did it glow for?
Oh, like 2 seconds.
Someone see you up there anyway.
We'll be up there for a meal.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. You're legends.
Thank you.
Yeah.